So as people are still coming in, we'll just go ahead and get started because we have such a short time frame and lots to share with you. So if you're just joining us, welcome. My name is Nathalie Brugman. I'm a regional trainer for the Southern Nevada RPDP, where we provide professional development for the 5 southern counties in Nevada. My primary focus is family engagement, so I always look forward to this every 2 years to be able to present and share some information that will hopefully help us really build these partnerships between the schools, the families, and the community as well. I've also brought with me my partner in crime, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hey everybody, good morning. My name is Mendy Henry. I am also a project facilitator for Southern Nevada RPDP, and I am over teacher leadership. So Nathalie and I do a lot of projects together. So I'm really happy to join you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mendy. Also, if you'll notice on the screen, we have some session notes for you. So if you wouldn't mind opening that up, you can use either the bit.ly. I think Mendy also popped it in the chat, so it'll open up in a separate tab. Or if you're on, if you have a phone handy and you want to do it that way, that's fine too. There's a QR code. So let me just walk you through this very quickly because I have a feeling we're going to run short on time, and I want to make sure you have all the information. Mendy, can you see the handout?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Awesome. So basically, this is going to serve 2 purposes for us today. This is going to be provide us with some links that we're going to be engaging with some certain particular resources, but also in the future, when you want to access some of the information, you can do that here. At the very bottom, anywhere you see a link, that's going to be an active link for you to click on. And we'll let you know when and if you need to do that. At the bottom is some additional resources. And so I do encourage you to check those out once we're done. All of the folder files in there really support what we're talking about here today. And if this is something you're looking at taking back to your schools, I would definitely encourage you to peruse those and check those out. And then lastly, I'll remind you again at the end, if you could take this feedback survey when we're finished. There is a spot on there that will ask if you're interested in additional professional development opportunities. And so I'd love to hear from you. I have a running list of names that I reach out to let you know when we're offering certain things. Okay, so make sure you get that opened up and ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So why family engagement, right? I think all of you understand why family engagement. That's why you're here. But I just want to take a quick poll. How much time do you think, percentage-wise, students spend in school? We're going to just use the chat to pop that in there. Mendy, Dolly says no sound. Can you hear me, Mendy?
Yes, she's having trouble with her sound. So I'm going to type that question in the chat so she can see that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so how much time, percentage-wise, do students spend in school? So we could spend our entire time right now sharing the decades worth of research, right, and data that support the positive impact that effective family engagement can have on student success. But one particular fact that I find super telling is this. Students typically spend about 82% of their waking hours at home or in school. So really, they're only with us in school for 18% of their time. I'm just going to let that sit with you for a second. This is a very shocking, when we've kind of put a graphic to it, it's kind of jolting because I feel like most of us think that students spend most of their time in school with us. And if we don't leverage this time, the outside time that they're at home or in their community, we're really missing an opportunity to be able to support their learning and their social and emotional growth. So making those connections with families is super important for us to do. Also, we've come to realize that in distance learning, the family engagement isn't confined to the four walls of the classroom and school building, right? That's that traditional thinking. And we need to shift from that traditional model of family engagement is grounded in those activities and events within the physical school building to really a model that is centered around students and partnerships between all who support their learning, okay? And so this session is designed to help empower all stakeholders to take an active role in cultivating trusting relationships with students, learning partners. Meaning if you're an educator, you're really working to build those trusting relationships with the families and as well as the community. And if you're a caregiver or family member, you're also working to strengthen those relationships. It's really this two-way street. And actually, I kind of think about it as a roundabout because we also need to include our community, right? So we're all working together on this. And fortunate for us, we have the dual capacity building framework for family school partnerships, which serves as this compass of sorts to support the development of our family engagement practices and strategies. Now, this learning session isn't about the dual capacity building framework because that could be a 45-hour course in itself. Instead, we're going to just drill down into just one element of the framework that I would argue if we don't begin here, our family engagement efforts will likely not have the impact on student learning and overall student well-being that we're really striving for. And so looking at the essential conditions, and that keyword essential really indicates that there's an absolute necessity for these particular conditions that we're talking about here. We're going to focus our attention on just one aspect in the process conditions, okay? And these are really just the day-to-day elements of effective practice. And so we're really going to drill down today on relational, built on mutual trust. And trust has been defined as an emotional state. It's a feeling of confidence we have in another's character and competence. So I just really want to unpack that definition for a moment, just because everything is just grounded in this trust aspect of it. Character is about our integrity, how honest we are, how aligned to our actions. Are we doing what we say we're doing? Is our agenda up front or is it hidden? Okay, and then competence addresses our skills and abilities. Okay, so this is the condition that most directly challenges the traditional approaches and existing mental models of family engagement. So building or like restoring the trust is a little bit difficult and tricky, and it can be a little challenging because it really requires us, the educators, first and foremost, as well as families, to really critically examine our beliefs, okay? Also, if we work in this space of building relational trust, many of the challenges that are listed on the left-hand side of the framework are going to be addressed and likely overcome. So this one process condition gives us a lot of bang for our buck, or return on investment. I think we can all agree that positive relationships between educators and families benefit children's health, social and emotional well-being, and cognitive skills. I just want you to think for a moment to yourself, are your relationships with your families of the students that you teach stronger or weaker than before the pandemic? Just think to yourself. Ideally, the pandemic has taught us that families are essential partners, right? In order for our students to learn and develop and grow. Or unfortunately. Maybe it just reinforced a widespread problematic mindset. There was a 2019 Frameworks Institute study that found that educators and members of the public tend to assume that the primary time to engage our families is when there's a crisis. So if attendance and grades are slipping, turn to the parents, right? If there's a behavior problem, turn to the parents. If there's a pandemic, turn to the parents, right? That's a new one for us. So we have to really kind of think about, why might that be? Why do we as educators think that? And why does the public think that as well? Well, back to the framework, the challenge aspect of the framework identifies, gives us some insights into why this might be. Okay, it acknowledges why educators and families start from distant positions, right? So one's over here, we're over here, and we're moving, hopefully moving towards each other. And there are some historical explanations for this. You know, for example, families may have had past negative experiences in school, right? And this could be recent past. This could be, maybe they're leaning on the model of family engagement that they grew up with. How engaged were their families? You know, what was the norm then? Something else to keep in mind are the cultural differences that may come into play here as well. So keeping all of that at the forefront of our mind when we're building these trusting relationships is super important. So regardless of the reason, a focus on building the relational trust will help us to build opportunities to repair past negative experiences with the home and school. Okay, they could also serve as that bridge to really help bridge the gap with the cultural differences also. And if you're an educator, you're probably very familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which teaches us that we have to feel safe and cared for in order to internalize information and really push ourselves to explore outside of our comfort zones. What we're talking about here today is outside of most of our comfort zones. The keynote speaker, she addressed that as well. So we need safety. So this is true for our students, right? Because that's why we're familiar with this hierarchy, but also with our colleagues and our families as well. Often teachers and families, unfortunately, feel like adversaries, when in truth, we're all on the same side. We're working toward the same goal, right? We want our students and families to feel comfortable and safe in that learning environment. So it makes sense, right, that the most engaged families are those who feel safe and welcome within the school community and school building. And in order to feel safe and welcome, they have to trust the people and systems within. And so today we have some strategies and dispositions that will hopefully help you feel empowered and empathetic when building trusting relationships with your families in your classrooms or school community. And we're referring to them as the 7 simple C's. And practicing these strategies and dispositions are reciprocal, and they're going to benefit everybody. So if it's educators practicing, everybody, you know, the families and the students are going to benefit. If you're a family member here, it's also going to benefit because you're going to grow and really kind of learn a little bit how to engage with the teachers as well. And the keynote, she gave a great example of that with the gentleman who contacted her when the student was blamed for pushing the child and feeling angry, and I can't remember the word she used, but these are all going to be strategies and dispositions that we can all use and embrace. And so this leads us to our first C, which is cogitation. And this is actually a real word if you didn't know. It means the action of thinking deeply about something or contemplation. And we have to begin to think deeply about our beliefs that we hold about families, and really interrogate and challenge the assumptions that we make about them. And so to help us check our beliefs and assumptions about how we go about building trust with our families, we have some questions to consider. And they're rooted in 4 key elements of relational trust. We have respect, integrity, competence, and personal regard. And in terms of respect, we should be asking ourselves, am I seeking input from, and do I listen to and value what all families have to say? And I'm going to emphasize that word all, okay? With competence, am I demonstrating to all families that I am competent and that I see them as competent and valuable caretakers, okay? With integrity, do I keep my word with families? Can they count on me? And personal regard, do I show my families that I value and care about them as people? And I would add their students as well. Okay, so these questions are designed to help us to begin to process the process of self-examination. It's important to recognize that all of our interactions with our families are greatly influenced by our deep inner beliefs, even if we don't realize it. But it's not enough to just simply identify our assumptions. We need to take it a step further and challenge them. And the Flamboyant Foundation developed a beginning of the year relationship building toolkit that I think is useful all year round. And it's a tool to help spark a conversation about how our assumptions can influence our actions, and then examine some ways in which we can question ourselves or others when we find bias or negative beliefs about families are emerging. And we're going to take a little bit of time to practice this exercise in small collaborative groups using a Jamboard. And this is basically, before I get into that, we also have some reflection stems that will help to kind of guide your conversations and your thought process as you're going through this. These are listed on your notes page as well, so you don't have to worry about taking a photo of them or anything. And so just know that you have that tool to draw upon as well. So basically, what we will have is an example negative belief. So the negative example is families aren't invested here. And then you're going to think about these questions as a process to challenge this belief. So what assumptions are being made about what it takes and what it sounds like to support a child's learning? And so I have an example here. One assumption is that investment is when families attend school events, participate in the PTO, and volunteer to chaperone a field trip. Okay. The next question is, how could this belief potentially impact educators' actions? Well, there's lots of things that might happen, but one thing that might happen is we might just stop trying to engage. If we truly believe that they're not invested, then we're probably going to have the counter action to that and basically just stop trying. But then we need to take it a step further and ask ourselves, what would you say to yourself or ask yourself or someone else if you were challenging this belief? So one challenge might be, what are some invisible investments that families might be making in their child's education? So really kind of taking that assumption and now challenging it with a question, something to think about. Okay. I'm just looking at time here. Mandy, you think we're good with time?
I think so. I'm ready. Okay. I've got everybody set up. So
okay.
Are you ready to do this now?
Yeah, let me just explain. So we're going to get into some small breakout groups. We're going to get out of our comfort zone just a little. I'm just going to give you a little nudge here. And when you get into your groups, you will have your own Jamboard for your group. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Well, what my example looks like. And you and your group are going to go through that process of asking, thinking about the assumptions that are being made and asking those questions to challenge it. And then if you've never used a Jamboard, over here on the left-hand side are some sticky notes. You can simply click on that to type your thought and idea. You'll press save, and then you can drag it to wherever it needs to go. If you're on a phone, this should work, but if it doesn't, then I would encourage you to at least verbally share your thoughts, and maybe somebody can type them for you. That would be awesome. How many groups do we have, Mindy?
I have the 5, and
okay, perfect.
Some groups have 7, some groups have 6.
Okay, and then over here on your notes page, Mindy's going to put the links in the chat for the Jamboard. Okay, she's going to tell you what group, and you're going to go to that group's Jamboard. They're also on the notes page. Okay, and they're over here listed in what group. So Mindy's going to tell you what group number you are, and then she's also going to, oh, she already popped those in. And then we're going to pop you in, and you're going to have about 7 minutes or so to just start this conversation and start this practice.
Okay.
All right, Mindy.
So I just popped the links for your Jamboards in there. I'm going to invite you to a breakout room. It will say, for example, Amanda Bonzo, you're going to be in group 1. And so it'll ask you to join group 1. So you're going to group 1's Jamboard. Okay. If you're confused about when it pops up, what group you're supposed to go in, just don't accept it yet and hang out, and I can help you. Okay. So it will signal to you what breakout room you go to that is associated with your Jamboard that's in the chat. Okay. And so you can just click on that Jamboard, or if you have your notes page up, like Nathalie mentioned, you can click that link. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. We hope you had some great conversations.
Yes, let me share my screen again here. All right, Mindy, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. I recognize that was fast and furious, and you probably only just got started. I did want to just give you a little taste of it to be able to interact with others, maybe get some of your thoughts down, see the thoughts of others. So just as a quick little reflection, I want you to just choose one of the questions that are on the screen to respond to in the chat. So either what did you find most helpful about this experience? What did you find most challenging about the exercise? And we'll take time off the table, okay? Because I know time was a big, huge challenge. But was there another challenge? And then 3, what, if anything, does this inspire you to do? So go ahead and choose just one to reflect on and pop your response in the chat. So as I was saying before, this activity is in the Back to School Relationship Building Toolkit from the Flamboyant Foundation. So that is in your extra resources folder. I encourage you to take that out, have a look at it. You can create your own negative beliefs, maybe do it as a group, maybe at a staff meeting or grade level meeting, and really start to kind of begin those conversations. Another tool I wanted to share in the book, Powerful Partnerships, the author offers a self-examination exercise that you can use to help identify some of your biases and assumptions, particularly if they're not on the surface. And I think that's where we struggle most, is those biases that are under the surface that we don't recognize. And those can be found in the Powerful Partnerships Study Guide in the Additional Resources folder as well. So I want to encourage you to check that out also. Okay, the extra resources are linked on your notes page, which is at the bottom. So it'll be in C number 7, commitment. There's a link there, and we'll share it if we have enough time in the chat as well. And so the second C is community. We want to create a sense of community that all families members feel like they're part of that community. So Elena Aguilar says, when we build community, we can build empathy for each other, and building empathy for each other helps us build community. So again, it's just this reciprocal, process that just keeps happening. Something simple we can do to start to begin to build community is learn the names of your caregivers. We have to remember that not all families look the same. They're quite different. You know, you could see mom picking up every day for one child and maybe grandpa for another. Maybe there's a neighbor or a family friend that picks up or is in communication with you. Another way to foster a sense of belonging when addressing families is to avoid using the word parents, because that's going to make everybody feel like, oh, this is just for parents. When we use more inclusive language like caregiver or family rather than parents, we're going to help all family members feel like true members of that community. And then another example of inclusive language that can help us to foster this feeling of community is using the terms we or us. Okay. And then next we have communication. We all communicate with our students' families in one way or another. However, we need to ask ourselves, how effective is the communication, and does it demonstrate our efforts to foster trusting relationships? Effective communication occurs when family and school staff engage in regular, two-way, meaningful communication about student learning. And I would also add student well-being also. And in order for us to cultivate trust within those communications, it's important to find common ground on communication methods, on times, and preferred language. For example, what format are they most comfortable with or have access to? Okay, this being a 24-hour town here in Clark County, and I know in Washoe, you have very similar schedules of working parents. And so when it's most convenient for us as educators, it might not be most convenient for family members. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we're honoring our own time as well. And this can be accomplished by communicating your availability with parents and share with them that you'll make every effort to work around and accommodate their schedule. However, there will be times that they're not going to be able to get a hold of you right then, right? But that you'll definitely get back to them as soon as you're available. It is a major balancing act, but it's super important. And then language. So we need to consider the written language, real-time communications, whether it be phone calls or virtual meetings. Is there someone in the home maybe that can assist with translation? I recommend not the student. Maybe finding somebody else in the home that can help with the translation, or maybe there's a neighbor or a friend that can help with that as well. But we won't know that until we actually reach out to families and try to elicit that information so that we can start to build that trust. Okay. And then number 4 is consistency. And this is going to be key because relationships take time. And it's the frequent and consistent communication that really allows relationships to grow and sustain. Just as our routines and rituals help our students feel safe and supported, adults require consistency for the same reasons. And this really connects back to that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and feeling safe and secure. Consistency in our action also directly correlates to our character and integrity, which in turn relates to trust. So be consistent in your communications. Try to share positive observations. Oftentimes, when caregivers receive a phone call or an email from a child's teacher, it's either intended for the large group, the whole class, or it's anxiety-inducing information about unwanted behavior or negative information. But consistently sending positive observations, whether academic or social emotional in nature, specific to individual students, that's going to cause families to actually look forward to your communication, as well as be less likely to enter conversations expecting something negative. So I have a link to a video. We're not going to watch it because we don't have time, but this is Danny Brassel, and he shares his sugar over vinegar philosophy. And it really demonstrates the aspects of consistency that we're talking about here. The link is on your notes doc, so you'll be able to access it there. And I encourage you guys to watch it. It's quick, it's funny, and it provides us a really great starting point. And then number 5 is care. And this ties back to the 4 elements of relational trust and that question regarding personal regard. When we ask ourselves, do I show families that I value and care about them and their child as people? Jess will, oh, thank you, Mendy. I think my chat is not moving as fast. Okay, sorry. So we need to remember that parents are the historical and holistic experts, right? Their specialty is their own child. And then us as educators, our specialty is educating a classroom full of students. So the question is, like, how do we bridge our specialties so that our students get the most out of both of us? And I would argue that those strong family engagement, is really going to be that bridge, or it's the mortar that holds the bricks together. It's important for us to understand, though, that the onus is really on us, the educators, to foster those relationships and communications that are needed. And so we have some questions that really honor families' deep knowledge of their child and also provide important information that we can draw on as needed. That would probably otherwise likely be unknown to us until we had some experience with the child. Just that first one, when your child encounters a challenge, how do they respond? So this really speaks to their perseverance and how we can also maybe interject before there is a meltdown. You know, some students, if they don't get it right away, it's done. They're done. They shut down. So just knowing that, how they respond to a challenge is going to help us in the classroom as well. And that number 5 question, what are your hopes and dreams for your child? That's a great one. And I've watched parents respond to this question, and they just light up. And it is something that I think that is an opportunity missed if we don't really capitalize on that. And then think about how they're going to feel, you know, in terms of that relationship about you and your trust. They're going to think, okay, they have my child's best interest at heart, first and foremost. And then number 6 is compassion. So compassion is the action taken in response to feeling empathy. But really, what does empathy mean? And so researchers have identified 4 main attributes of what it means to be empathetic. And integrating these practices into your practice can show your students and their families that you see what they're going through. And it's more than just a problem to fix. So we have perspective taking. When you take a different perspective, you put aside your own feelings and reactions to that situation and try to see it through the other person's eyes. Also, putting aside judgment. So it's important for us to step back and consider, what do I need to learn and understand about the situation? Trying to understand somebody else's feelings. Everybody's experiences are their own. So saying, I know how you feel, can come across as a little bit disingenuous, actually a lot of it. So we want to avoid that. Also communicate that you understand. Try to talk without using fix-it phrases like what you need to do is, or instead maybe using something like, it sounds like you, or I hear that you, okay? And we also need to keep in mind what empathy is not. And those are listed on here. It's not the same as sympathy. It doesn't mean lowering your expectations. And although empathy is about feeling, it's not about feeling sorry. And we also need to acknowledge our own emotions. Oftentimes, certain situations and conversations might stir up some emotions within us. And it's important for us to acknowledge those, but take some time and maybe step away from the situation and regroup before you talk to them. And then we have for you, in the spirit of self-reflection and assessment, this is a questionnaire to gauge your level of empathy. And it's basically a list of statements, and you just determine how frequently you feel that you act in that manner that's described. And so it'll give you a level of empathy. But what I find great about this tool is that, yes, the level is kind of cool. It gives you a starting point, but I think the statements on there reveal a lot more and is something that we can actually work with and make actionable for ourselves. So if you're not too frequent about a certain thing, situation, then maybe challenging yourself, how can I shift my thinking in terms of this? Because they're very general statements. So that link is also in your notes doc, and I encourage you all to check that out also. And last, Mandy, how much time do we have? Sorry.
4 minutes.
Oh, geez.
Whip it up.
Okay. Got it. So our final C is commitment. Okay. So cultivating trusting relationships really takes a commitment. And we need to remember that this is not one and done family engagement that we're talking about. This is really working toward that model of engagement that is centered around our students and the partnerships between all that support them. And so we have commitment to equitable efforts to engage all families. And then we also have commitment to self-growth and development. And these are connected to two competencies that are listed in the NAFSC's recently released Family Engagement Core Competencies. That document is linked in the additional resources, so I encourage you guys to check that out as well. So I'm not going to go through that. I'll give you the opportunity to check those out. But as you can see, all of these aspects, all of these strategies and dispositions really interact and support each other. So I think I only have a couple minutes left, so let me just go ahead and wrap this up real quick. The additional resources, I'll pop that in the chat in case somebody was asking about that, but it's also in your, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. I'll do that in just 1 second. Let me just push this to the next slide. We'll pop that back into the chat in just a minute. We have a feedback survey, like I mentioned in the beginning. I'd really appreciate if you filled that out. We do look at your feedback and we take those things into consideration as we plan more sessions. And so also, if you're interested in an additional PD, there's a spot in there to let us know that as well. So you can either access that in the link in the chat, or it's a simple form. You can just use your phone and the QR code if you want. I know that was fast and furious, and I appreciate everybody joining us this morning.